Well, hi again everybody. Welcome to part 2 of my new network build. Actually, it's mostly the rack and all the components that go into it, but as I said in part 1, it is completely revamping a lot of the major parts of the network, including the ability to go 10 gig speed. So what I'm going to do here today is a couple of things. Definitely going to go through all of the things that I purchased in order to build this. I have everything now having arrived. You've already seen the 10 gig network switch that I bought from Netgear, so I'm not going to cover that again. You'll see it once it's been put into the rack itself later on, but for now I don't need to go over that again. And then this box here actually has the rack in it, so I'm going to open this up, show you what's inside, and in the second part of this video I'm going to actually put it together. It's not very complex. There's only a few screws to put it together. It's not like an erector set or anything like that, for some of you who may remember that. So let me open this thing up and we'll take a look at what's in here. Got my handy dandy, actually I've already got it opened, so don't need to cut into it. So right off the bat we have the key piece to this whole thing, and that's the front chassis. So if I take this bubble wrap off, you will see the actual front chassis to the entire rack. I'll hold it this way so you can see most of it. So it has 15U, as I said in the first part. This is actually one side, that's the other. And then the bottom or top, it doesn't really matter. They're exactly the same, they're mirror image. So I could put it this way, or I could put it this way. It won't make any difference. Matter of fact, all the same holes are drilled in all the appropriate places. So this is the front. And the next piece of bubble wrap, it's got one of the sides. Let me take this out of here. So these are 16 inches deep. This is meant to be the front. Matter of fact, the position here does matter. So this particular one, well, not really. In this position, this would be the left-hand side of it once it's installed from the camera's perspective. And the other one would be the opposite. However, if I just turn it this way, it has all the same holes, just like I said before with the front, so I can make it the other side. So they're mirror images of each other, the two pieces that are in here. This is the first one. And the important thing here is the depth, 16 feet. So it's not a full depth rack. A full size, fully featured rack will have a lot more depth to that. I think it actually goes out to about 36 inches to allow for really large, deep, rack-mounted servers that can go into there. This one won't support that. This here is the assembly instructions. I did see this online. It's kind of generic, so they're showing one here that's not the 15U, but they're exactly the same. I'll put this aside. Then there's some packaging material. Oh, here is some hardware. This includes actual screws that you can use to hold down equipment. They don't give you enough, which is why you'll see I bought more. It also includes the mounting, because this is meant that it can actually be mounted on top of a table or just against a wall. I'm going to do both. I'm going to put it on top of a table that's against a wall, permanent table, and that way I'll be able to secure it to both the table, which is all wood, and then also to the back wall. That's what all this is. It's just the hardware. Take this out. And then the final piece that's in here is just another side to it. So I'll take it out for now because I want to assemble that at the end, and you'll see how easily it all goes together. So that's really the heart of what I'm doing with this particular build, which is it's all going to be centered upon that rack, and all of the components then would be mounted either inside or under or near the rack itself. Now let me show you the other pieces that I've purchased. First off, I purchased a power supply, a special power supply that's meant for rack mounting. Okay, so that's what this is. Let me open it up and show it to you. It comes with screws and nuts, depending on what type of rack you have. Some need nuts. This particular one that I bought does not need the nuts. It only uses the screws. So I'll just keep that on the side. No need to use those in this build. And then this is the actual power It's supposed to have a 15-foot, doesn't look like 15-foot, but even 10-foot would be fine. That's got to be 10-foot. It's got a total of 8 AC power connectors on it, and it's got a main switch here that is protected by a little plastic window. It's also got a circuit breaker here. So what I'm going to do is this is going to be mounted on the reverse. So from the camera perspective, assuming you're looking right at my rack, this is what you will see. It'll look like a blank, which I'll show you what a blank really looks like in a moment. And then I'll plug in to the back side of this, and then this will be the only thing running down and out of the rack to the power. So that's the power distribution. What do we got here? I was talking about a blank. Well, there's in one case in my current design, as I showed in part 1, I have a blank area, an area where I'm not going to put anything for now. I may put something in the future, but I don't like the idea of having a hole in there. Just like I always put the little I/O connectors on the back of a PC. I don't like holes in it. So that's what this is. This is a blank. It also comes with some screws, but we'll see if I use those screws. I'm going to use the same screws throughout. These look different than the ones that I have, so I may not use these. But this thing is just a piece of blank metal, and it just fills into a 1U spot that I don't intend on using, at least for now. And then I'll look at these two together. These will be the distribution panels for the rack. I bought 2 of them. This one is much more costly. This one comes with all of these Cat 7 inline connectors already plugged into it. And they can be taken out, they can be removed. But I was able to buy it together and save some money on these connectors because they cost a considerable amount of money. What happens here is the cables come in and they run across the top, and there's little T-shaped pieces here. And that's how you can then wire wrap. They give you some wire wraps with white ones, which I won't use. I'll use black, in order for the cable to lay across the top here and not be under stress as it connects. These are pass-throughs, so it has an RJ45 on the inside and an RJ45 on the outside, which is going to be predominantly what I have in my rack for now, because I have already put RJ45s and boots on the end of every one of my cables that is coming in from the wall. You have your choice. You could actually go with just pure Keystone jacks, which I also have, because there might be some new ones that I add, and I might decide to do those with just a Keystone jack. They're a lot cheaper to do it that way, but they're more permanent, and to take them out is pretty difficult. This one, I would just have to unplug the cable from the back. Now, I needed more ports than this, even though I have 24 ports on my existing switch. It's not how I expect to grow. I expect to grow, by at least another 6 ports right off the bat, and eventually probably get another 12 to 14 ports. So what I did is I bought another one of these, but I decided not to get it with the double-sided pass-throughs like this one has on it. So this is just a blank distribution panel. It doesn't have the supporting thing in it, which is okay. There's some cables that it's not needed, but I have to put my own Keystone jacks in here, and it'll be a combination, some pass-through, some Keystone jacks where the cable will be wired right onto the back of it, but this will be the front. And I have a labeler, and I actually bought some white letter on black labeling stock, which looks really nice. You'll see it when I put this all together and I renumber this. By the way, I'm putting all of these parts down in the notes section of this video, so that if you see anything here that you'd like to get, you'd be able to at least find the link into Amazon, in most cases, to where I got this stuff. So these are the 2 distro panels. And finally, I'll open one of these. I have 2 of them. These are cable management brackets that go in and use a 1U slot. Now, I may not need both of them. I bought 2 just in case because they came as a pair. So I got a much better price by buying the 2 of them. And matter of fact, I think it was almost as much just to buy one. So I said, what the heck? And for now, I have it in my design to use both of them, but we'll see how it goes forward. Let me show you how this works. It also is 1U. This one comes with some rack ears to it, right? So I'll have to add the ears to it. This particular 1U double piece of metal does not have the rack ears built onto it or molded onto it. Again, more screws and nuts. Of course, then they don't match my other ones. And how this works is this. This actually goes into the rack, so it'll go in this way with these fingers pointing forward like this. You see these fingers in here? And so from the perspective of, assuming the camera's in front of the rack facing me, when I have cables that I need to hide excess, and some of them I will probably have to do that with. I will tuck them in. This is just the right thickness for a network cable. You tuck them in and they go into the back, come out the back of the actual panel. And then it has a front cover that just clips on like that. And then from your perspective, that's what you most will see. It'll look like the wires are disappearing into this thing. Okay, so I have 2 of these. And then this is an important one. I didn't open this one up yet. No, I did not. Packaged pretty well. What this is a 2U shelf, and it's exactly 16 inches deep. So I made sure I got one that would fit inside of my rack. And it will use up the space for 2 U's of the rack. And as you saw from the diagram that I showed in part 1, it'll be up at the top. Again, comes with the stainless steel hardware again. There's a 1-page instruction sheet on it. Doesn't say much, just packaging contents and stuff like that. And then this is how it would go in. From the perspective of the camera, assuming you're facing my rack, this is how it will look. It's attached at the front as a 2U, so there's enough holes there to support it in 2 separate rack units. In the back, there is no connection for the back, but if you see, when I put it all together, on the side of the rack, there are places to actually put nuts and bolts that could be used to support this in the back. It's got a lip on the back, it's got a lip on the front, so it's very strong. It's actually pretty heavy. Actually, this is pretty good gauge steel. So this is where I'm going to put my modem, my 2 Buffalo NASs, and some other stuff. So this is going to be very, very handy in that regard. Now let me show you this. This I'm going to probably put in one of the other parts of this video. I'll make a separate segment just for this. I bought a giant roll of Cat7 cable. It's 640 feet. Now that's meant to be for a combination of things, including running a couple of more runs from my server corner over to distribution connectors on the wall. So I'm going to actually have to run that either through the ceiling or run it across the panel that I have in the back here, all the way over into the garage, and then wrap it around to where I need it. And I'll do one that way, and I have another one I'd like to do that'll go through the basement and come out over near my color laser printer. And those are going to be meant for 2 computers. Well, one of them for sure will be running 10 gig. The other one is going to be running 2.5 gig. What these are, it is the actual things you need to build the cables. So in addition to that, I'm going to take some of that wire and actually build cables from it. So for example, this one here, the Cat7 RJ45 ends. Now, Cat7 is different than Cat7, than Cat6 or Cat5 or Cat whatever one you go to below that. And you need a special crimping tool for that. The one that I have does not support that. So what I have here is a new crimping tool. And it's a really fancy box, a gold colored box. I'm sure it came from a place that a lot of this stuff comes from on the other side of the world. But you open this up and it's got a really beautiful setup. They give you a couple of accessories here. They give you a sample one to play with, which I'll probably use. And this is meant to do the proper crimping on Cat7 versus the Cat6, Cat5. And I'll make like I said, I'll make a separate section, not in this video, but in a later one. It actually has a switch on it, whether or not you're doing a Cat7 cable or a Cat6 or below. The reason you have to do that is you cannot crimp one particular part of the Cat7 connector. That's why these connectors give you an alternate way of supporting the cable. If you look at these here, these clear ones that I have, which I've shown before in another video, how to create that, there's a spot to compress the back of it to hold the cable into the connector. Well, you can't do that with these. And you have to change the switch on this crimper, and it's a much more solid one. A higher end type crimper for RJ45 connectors, and it cost accordingly, although it was a reasonable price, I think. When I think about what I already have, which you can buy for a lot cheaper now, this is probably about the same price as I paid for the one that I currently use, which is going back about 7-8 years since I've had that one. So this is to make the cables, and I have the cable over there. I have a little sample of it. Here's the actual cable, and I'll go over this when I actually create the cables. Each individual pair is shielded. In addition to all pairs together are shielded, and it's got a really, really tough outer skin to it. This is meant to really be secure, a Cat 7 cable. So I'll show you that. But to go along with that, I had to go and buy some boots for it. So if I'm going to make cables, and I'm not going to make that many cables. I have a lot here to play with, but I doubt I'll make that many cables. I'm definitely not going to make the jumper cables between the distribution panel and the switches, and I'll show you why. So these are the boots. These are the boots that are the right size for that cable. These have a much larger opening to them than the other boots that I have of different colors that I showed in another video. So you have to make sure that the boots are able to meet the diameter of the cable, and these are. It only came in a couple of colors, but I decided since the cable was black, I'm going to stick to the concept of black being Cat 7, at least the ones that I build. So these components are meant for building the cables. And then what I have here are more of the rack's keystone jacks. This particular one is also Cat 7. These are the ones that are already on the existing distribution panel that I paid a little bit extra for. But I figured I needed more of these, so I found them at a decent price. So I went ahead and bought some of these. They look exactly the same as the ones that already came pre-installed on the other distribution. It's RJ45 on one side and the other side. So it's just a simple pass-through. So I got a whole bag of those. And then these are the other keystone jacks. These are the ones that actually allow you to push pin down the actual wire into the back side of them. So it only has an RJ45 connector on one side, not the other. So I only have a handful of these. I think I only got 10 of them for now. If I need more, I can always get them, but they're not cheap, so I didn't want to, get carried away with that. Then I have here a lot of the same. Here are the screws. I bought a whole package of these screws. I think it has 50 of them in it. Yep, there's a big 50 on it. So these are the actual screws that will support all of the equipment into the rack. I don't need the nuts with it. All I needed was the screws with the rack that I bought. And then they're keystone jacks, but they're only for Cat 6. So a bunch of the cables that I've already have are only Cat 6, Cat 6A to be specific, which still works for 10 gig, but I want to use these on the older cables that I have that are currently Cat 5 or Cat 5E. So that's what these are. So I have a whole package of these, 25 of them. The next layer is a bunch of cables. These are jumper cables. I bought all different sizes. These are all Cat 7. And I'll open this one up first. Cat 7, you can see, when you see this shielded connector on the end, that usually means that it's a Cat 7, okay? So this is only a 1 foot black. So I think there's 10 of those in here. And then I have over here a package of 2 foot. So another 10 pack of 2 foot black. I've got a package of 10 whites, okay, little jumpers. These are 1 foot. And then I got a package of 2 foot gray. So I'm gonna have a little bit of a color coding, not much of a color. It'll be white, black, and gray. I'm gonna use those to designate different parts of it. What I have here, in a few cases, I need more than a 2 foot or a 1 foot. And that's to leave the rack and go to other equipment that's either far away from the distribution panel or somewhere else, maybe on the wall in terms of the wall connectors. So I got this package of 5 footers. So these are Cat 7 5 foot cables. So that's more than enough to reach from the top of the rack to the bottom of the rack, if you're going into a wall connector, for example. So I got those. So those are the connectors that'll allow me to patch different equipment through the distribution panel, the short cables. Some are 2, some are 1. I'll figure out what pattern I want to use later on that. Now this is a special power cord I bought for my server. It allows me to save a little bit of room. The server's quite long. That's going to sit at the bottom of the rack for now. So I bought a 90-degree power cable for it. So this will allow me to put the connector on here and then run this up to the power distribution panel without any issues. I think it's only, 6 foot cable, but that's good enough. And then finally, I have some special case cables that I bought here. In terms of cables, that is, finally. I have a lot of other stuff to show you. These are what we refer to as the SFS copper jumpers. They're meant to go into SFS connectors, and I bought 2 of them. I got one that's a 0.5 meter, and I got another one that is, I think it's a 3 meter. I think that's the case, but let's look at the one. So this has cable with built-in SFP SFP connectors. They have the package labeled fiber, but this is not fiber. This is just copper cable in the middle of this. So these are actually SFP plus. Now the plus is meant for 10 gig as opposed to the ones without the plus being just SFP connectors. That's meant for 1 gig. So I got 2 different lengths of this, but I don't think I'm going to be using these, but I'll have these as extra to experiment with. What I have here is a couple of SFP separate devices. I bought a pair of them. So this is an SFP adapter. And this one is for, like I said, SFP is only, without the plus, is only 1 gig. But this is fiber. It has the actual connector on the end here that allows you to put a fiber cable on it. I found out that that actually is probably the best thing to do as a jumper between the 2 switches. So what I did is I bought a little 1.5 foot fiber. And it is the quality that's meant to support 10 gig. There's a color code to this. The ones that are aqua like this are meant for 10 gig. They have other colors as well that if you go by the pure sort of unofficial standard to these, the color makes a difference. Yellow is meant, I believe, or is it orange? Orange is meant to be only 1 gig, whereas the aqua is meant to be 10 gig. So it doesn't matter. You can use these, the 10 gig one where you're only going to do 1 gig. It turns out that my 2 SFP ports, they're going to have to transfer at just 1 gig. And that's a limitation on my older switch. The older switch I had, which I misinterpreted originally, I thought that was a 10 gig SFP, but it's not. It's only a 1 gig. So I'm going to be using a little fiber with these 2 separate little SFP, and these are the SFP for 1 gig, and it does identify itself to the actual switch. So you got to use the right ones. And then what I have here, might as well cover that now. These are adapters for beyond 1 gig. I've already got 2 of them installed. This particular one I bought from eBay in a pair. So there's already 1 installed on my main PC here. And this is a spare that I have that'll go into one of my backup servers. And this is a 10 gig only. It is not capable, I found out the hard way, and I mentioned that when I was reviewing that 10 gig switch, that it does not adapt 1 gig, 2.5, 5 gig, and then 10 gig. It'll only run 10 gig. That's a limitation on it, but that's the way it used to be. There was no adapting to different speeds needed. And then these, I got a really good sale on these. One I opened, one I didn't. Let me open up the one. These are 2.5 gig adapters that can go in any PC with a ×1 PCIe slot. So this is a 2.5, and it will run at 1 or 2.5, and there's lights to indicate what speed it's running at. So I bought 2 of these for future expansion. I think I might put one in my wife's computer right off the bat. It also comes with low profile brackets. Pretty good sale. I think I got them for what came out to be about 20 bucks each. I paid a little bit extra by going RJ45. If I were willing to go SFP across the board, then I would have saved money on the adapters, but it would have cost me a lot more money buying the little SFP. Then I got a few more things over here I want to talk about. Okay, so as you saw in my diagram of how the rack is going to look, I'm adding some more fans to it. 2 more of these fans, which I already have 2 of them in there running. So I bought 2 more of the exact same fan. So these are 120 volt fans. It comes with shields to them on both sides, long lasting, high output throughput, and work very well with a variable speed motor control. So I bought 2 of these. And then this is something I got as an afterthought. These are little protectors. I got a giant bag of these for the RJ45. So any unused RJ45 ports, and I'm going to use this across the board. I bought enough of these to do so. I'll buy more if I have to. But these fit into the RJ45 port and protect them. A handy little thing. And I did the same thing for protectors for the USB. Didn't get quite as many of those. We'll see how they work out. But any unused USB, especially on things that are related to my network rack, you really don't want to let that dust get in there. The dust could actually cause problems if you then decide to plug them in. So they're all rubber. You can unconnect them very easily. Really handy. So I'll be using that. And then the very final thing is I bought this set of wire management pieces. They have double-sided tape on them. They're the same black, and they come with different types. Some of them run 1 wire, some of them run 2, some of them run 4 wires. So we're gonna use this to manage the cabling inside the rack itself. They're meant to go inside the actual rack arms. Okay, let me put the rack together now. I have the front piece here. Let me just sort of turn it upside down. I'll take one of the side pieces. I'll pick a side, doesn't really matter. Put it down in here. And there are holes for these screws right over here. It is assembled. There it is, standing full height. Now I'm not going to put the other shelves or the blanks or any components on it until after it's installed. That way I can work around this a lot easier. As I mentioned before, it's meant to be mounted to a wall. That's why you have these types of holes here. And they gave me hardware to use for that, but I'm not sure if I'm going to use their hardware. You'll see when I put it into its corner, there's going to be a lot of prep work to that. Because what I need to do is make sure that the back end is nice and level and color matching. And you'll see what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to put a piece of plywood. Also, look here. You see these slots here? Those are the slots that I was referring to before, that I can actually put a bolt and a nut through here to hold things like the shelf, because the shelf is going to go up here at the top and it'll go all the way back to the back end of this. And I want to make sure that I can give it some support. So every so often they have one of these slots here, and it's meant for that purpose. If you have something that goes all the way to the back, to give it that extra support. But that's it. That's basically it at this point. There's nothing else to do until I do some deconstruction. I'm going to have to do some demolition of the corner there. And once I've done that, then I can put this one in. I'm going to have to take my network down probably for a full day. Okay, that completes part 2 of my new network rack and configuration build. In the next part, it'll be showing how the adapters, the various 10 gig and mixed speed adapters that I bought, are going to go into a couple of the computers, including the server, definitely how I did it in my main workstation, and I may try my backup workstation as well. It already has a 2.5 gig adapter on its motherboard, so it doesn't really need it, but going from 2.5 to 10, at least one of my 2 backup devices will be able to use that second 10 gig adapter. And the 2.5 gig ones, I don't think I'll get to that in the next part, but it's pretty straightforward. Those actually will be plug and play. So anyway, thanks for watching. And if you got something out of today's video that you found useful or just enjoyable to watch, if you could do me a favor and subscribe to my channel, that would be very helpful. So take care, be safe, be healthy. Bye.